And what is the framework of peace? The universal principles of peace are basically three. One, humanity is one. There is only one humanity. Second, oneness of humanity is expressed in diversity. And third, the greatest challenge before humanity is to maintain our oneness, nurture our diversity, and do these two things without resort to violence. Now, if we teach our children and youth these three principles and help them to study every subject so that when, within these principles, so that when they study physics, they be inspired to use their knowledge in the context of oneness of humanity, the diversity of humanity, and avoidance of violence, then they wouldn't be bomb makers. They would spend their knowledge of physics or chemistry in some other way. When they would look at history, they wouldn't look at history only through prism of war and conflict. When they study sociology, they wouldn't think in sociology us and them, foreigners and citizens, good people and bad people, this ethnic group and that. They would think of oneness of humanity in the context of diversity. So by doing that, you create a different dynamics and orientation for them. You create a different mindset. They become different leaders of society. So the program succeeded in Bosnia-Herzegovina, and now government has asked us to go to all schools. So we are in the beginning of the process of going to 2,200 schools with 1.5 million students, 110,000 teachers and staff, and millions of parents, okay? And we are now taking the program to other parts of the world. We think that there are all schools are appropriate for this kind of thing. Some schools are particularly ready, such as Montessori system would immediately see the relevance of this to itself, but every school can do that and will be able to do that. So our hope is that a good number, representative number of teachers, of parents, of policymakers, of government leaders, of community leaders become aware of various programs of education for peace, leadership for peace, peace-based conflict resolution. These are different programs that we have. And they would be interested to implement it and to learn about it. They can learn more about this by going to our website. And so education for peace hopefully become the norm and the framework of our education rather than an exception and something on the background and periphery.
Thank you. What would you say is unique about the philosophy and the approach of education for peace?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, the most important and unique aspect of education for peace is framework and conceptualization, is our understanding of human nature and the nature of human conflict. First of all, we believe that human nature in its essence is good and not violent. Second is that human nature is expressed through the lens of our worldview. Worldview means the way we look at reality, we look at human nature, we look at the purpose of life and human relationships. And within the framework of worldview, we can either have a conflicted worldview or unity-based worldview. And we teach students and teachers and parents to look at the world through a unity-based worldview rather than conflicted worldview. So these are very unique. Also, it is unique, as I mentioned earlier, in the way we understand conflict. We understand conflict to the absence of unity. And therefore, conflict resolution is a process of creating unity, which is also then conflict prevention. The more unity you create, the less conflict you have. And when you create a global unity, you have a global peace. So it is a very, orientation is different than the other. And then methodologies also are important because we involve everybody. We involve every subject of study. We include from director to janitor in understanding the dynamics of education for peace. There is no exclusion. So these are all some of the unique aspects of the education.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And finally, how do you see the role of young people in creating a more peaceful world in the future?
Well, the only hope of humanity are the young people. We old people, we have done a very bad job. We have made a mess of this world. This world is in very, very bad shape. And who has made it is us. And I think when we get older, it's very difficult to change. Okay? But we know at least that if we cannot change ourselves, we can give a different kind of education to our children and to our youth so that they become the leaders and citizens of the world in a manner that they are driven to create a civilization of peace rather than living in this jungle of survival of the fittest, of conflict, of extremes of wealth and poverty, of tremendous misery around the world, and tremendous excessive living in other parts of the world. This has to change. And the youth has to know that the world belongs to them, and they belong to the world. And we should create conditions so that they take the leadership in that sense and correct many of the problems that we have right now. Always the sign of a good parenthood and a good teacher is that our children and our students become much better than us. If we do that, then we have succeeded. Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much. It has been a pleasure to have you here, Mr. Danesh. My name is Caroline Hargreaves, and I am reporting for the Transcend Media Service from Stadtschleinig, Austria.